Beautiful. Awesome. Here we go. Perfect. So for those watching along, this is the episode around sports performance and nutrition. We have a beautiful guest on who's going to share all of this beautiful knowledge that he has. And this is going to be a great episode for you guys around nutrition when it comes to actually taking your performance to the next level. That's what really this podcast is going to be about, or this episode. And yeah, just really excited. So I'll introduce Charlie. He is a accredited dietitian, a sports physio as well, and just just introduce yourself if you want, Charlie.
Hey guys, yeah, my name's Charlie. I'm a accredited practicing dietitian, and I do like to specialize in performance for sport and like injury prevention in physio, but also love to steer off to like gut health and other things, pediatrics and all things dietetics really.
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole reason I fell in love with nutrition was um, ever since like year 10 or year 9, I like fell in love with CrossFit and training and was trying to train for my brother. He's a rugby player
Yeah, sick.
and
Yeah.
kind of like fell in love with all the training parts of things and then found out about nutrition and how my performance just dramatically like improved like within half a year. I just fell in love with like controlling all the variables in terms of nutrition and finding out nutrition is like 80% of like performance and what your goals really are in terms of sport. And nutrition plays a huge part.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I was like, I would love this stuff. I'd love to learn more. I'd love to be a professional
Yeah.
in this field. And here I
Yeah, absolutely. And like for those of you that haven't watched the, whether it be like macro, micro breakdown or like even just reading nutrition label episodes, go back and watch them. Charlie like specializes in such a like great field where you have to have that knowledge behind you to then come into this episode and really take away these key points that Charlie's going to touch on today. So thank you for sharing that. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I know
am.
that, yeah, everyone listening is going to get so much from this. So I really appreciate the time that you put into this. Yeah, you touched on your like why and your reasoning behind it there. What was one of the key pieces along that stage of when you started CrossFit that you really had to flick that switch of being like, I need to start focusing on this
Yeah.
to achieve more?
I think probably even within 1 year of like after 1 year of my CrossFit journey, I just kind of plateaued. You have like the newbie gains of quote unquote, like you
Yeah, yeah,
get a new stimulus, you like start progressing crazy. And then it hit a plateau. I'm like, what's going on? Like everyone around me is like, and like obviously you hear the chat around people around you in the gyms and stuff and say what they're having before working out. I'm like, wait, you guys think about what you have before training? Then kind of realize like, okay, I started, and I usually just see if this class is like, we tweak a few little small things, and then I realize, wow, that made such a big difference. Even like what you have pre-workout compared to not having anything at all, or something that's just not being like optimizing your performance. That one little swap, and you're like, wow, what else can I do? So I
yeah,
think I'd say like 1 year after training in that new stimulus and kind of plateauing, I was like, changed a few small things just from the chat around the gym, and then I'm like, wow, start doing my own research on hydration, optimal carbohydrates before training, like
yeah.
electrolytes, recovery, like, and then it was kind of like, wow, I love all this stuff, and
Yeah.
kind of focus on the stuff you can do outside the gym to help you perform in the gym was so addictive to me. So
And absolutely, yeah, yeah. And CrossFit is one of those like longer duration activities as well, and it's not just a combination of lifting. It's like you're also running, you're lifting heavy as well as like doing a bit more like your pull-ups, your muscle ups,
yeah,
all of those types of body movements as well. It's not just focused on, a bicep curl one stage and then rest for 3 minutes and going on. It's peak performance really at its truest there. I think CrossFit is one of those things where nutrition and fueling correctly is so important. And we're going to touch on the timing of your food a little bit later. But first, I want to touch on this topic because I feel like in the health and fitness space, it is such a topic at the moment around gut health and why it's important. And yes, there's like some physical attributes of bloating and things like that. But I think when it comes to performance, I really want to get your take on, yeah, how bad gut health can really affect your performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this topic so much. And it's something that's overlooked so much by everyone. Um, you mentioned the physical attributes like bloating, discomfort, stuff like that. But also like the gut-brain barrier is actually such an important thing, and like brain fog, feeling tired after already had enough sleep. All those things actually play a part in your if your microbiome is actually messed up a little bit. And the symptoms could be constipation or bloating or diarrhea. Those things are like more like side effects of like what's the actual causation. Um, and yeah, I guess there's way more things to look into it than just the physical attributes. So if you are recognizing that you're lower energy for a prolonged period of time, weeks or months, and you're not getting enough sleep, you're having the right amount of caffeine, you're doing all those right things, but you're still not having that little spike
Mm.
before training or during training or after training. There's something to look into in terms of prioritizing your microbiome and your gut health.
Yeah, yeah. And on that, what would be, let's just say, three foods that can actually help change that? And where's some places or some things that they can do to get their gut microbiome tested as well?
Yeah. Yeah, great. Awesome. So I was number one, prioritize fiber. It probably sounds like everyone's been told this on social media and stuff, but it's actually such an important thing. A good rule of thumb is 25 for females, grams of fiber a day, or 30 for males. Or if you're gonna go more into it a bit more, if you're a larger male or female, it's about 11 grams per 1,000 calories you have. It's a bit more in depth than a lot of general pop, but say example, you're a large male, you're having 4,000 calories a day, like you're burning a lot, you're eating a lot. You obviously would need a lot more fiber if you're a bigger male. So around that 11 grams per 1,000 calories would be a good amount of fiber. And that could
Absolutely.
come from fruits, whole grains, legumes, nuts, just like those plant-based foods that like have like the skin or like the grain still on them is where the good source of fiber is coming from.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
another
it's
one, so
on
you go.
that note is like the like geo food tracking apps like MyFitnessPal, all of those apps give you that a fiber breakdown, and most people just overlook it. And I think that it is something that really needs to be taken into consideration when it comes to gut health,
Yeah.
because it is such an important part. So that's also in another episode around how to read your MyFitnessPal, how to read the fitness apps. So yeah, continue on, Charlie.
Yeah, and I want to touch on one thing. Like, I didn't mention from the sources of fiber. I didn't mention like, do you know those protein bars you see, and they got like 9 grams of fiber per protein bar? I'd really like you to steer away from getting your fiber from those sources. So it's a grain of salt with like, if you're looking in your MyFitnessPal and you're like on a 60 grams of fiber, but you've had two protein bars that had like 10 grams of fiber per. Yes, it will like still help, but I don't think
Yeah.
it doesn't it does like an artificial fiber. So it's not as I don't think it's pure as like going for like the straight from the source.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so another one would be boost plant variety. So you really want to your microbiome to get a diverse range of bacteria. So you add like different legumes, different fruits, switch up your grains as well that you're having. I think it's all be a more variety to your gut as well. Because your gut is like bacteria. And the more diverse your bacteria in your gut is, the more it's just able to thrive and grow.
Yeah.
And that's just also going to lead to like cognition benefits as well. Your gut brain barrier is going to improve. Sleep's probably going to improve. All this, it's crazy how something so important is overlooked a lot of the time in terms of
Mm.
performance and just normal longevity and just being productive each day, really.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you touched on like, so legumes there, like your chickpeas, your quinoa, stuff like
Yeah,
that, and then also um like your beans, like you've got your five different bean mixes there as well.
yeah, absolutely,
Those
yeah,
types of things, adding those small things into like salads, into like meals, whether it be spaghetti, stuff like that, I think is
yeah,
a great great way to get those extra
Yeah,
extra dietary fibers in.
yeah, and the five bean mix was a perfect example of like there's a five variety there, and they all got different types of bacteria and fiber in them. So that's a perfect example of getting a variety in
Yeah.
that it's five different ones just that, which is so good. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, next one was probiotics. I think people probably heard about this a little bit, but what actually are they? It's like a fermented food that also helps with your gut balance. So things like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, tofu, miso tempeh, stuff like that.
Mm.
And that can
Yeah.
also help with your micro biome mix as well. So
Yes.
I don't love kimchi and those things, but yogurt's awesome. Like I have so much yogurt. I'm sure a lot of people in the health scene get it for like the protein, but also like it's a great probiotic if you're getting like the Greek yogurts. Like YoPro is a great example, like one that's like high protein, still good probiotic to have. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like I've only just started recently, probably in the last 6 months, started eating sauerkraut and started eating kimchi. And the great thing about it now is like there is so many different flavors. There is so many different different things that you can get. There's like the beetroot and apple one. I don't know if you've had that. Like, that
Yeah, I
is
have.
actually, yeah, that's actually gun. Um, and yeah, I noticed a difference between now and the last 6 months. Absolutely. So
What have you noticed so far?
honestly, I feel less fatigued after I eat. Like always something that I also tell my clients after eating is like go for a walk, don't just like lounge around, but I actually feel quite light after eating with foods that have kimchi in it or that I'm adding quinoa beans in. And pretty much also the biggest thing is probably like how regular I am on the toilet. And yeah, just like it just makes a big change. Makes a big
Yeah.
change.
I would love to touch on the regularity of like how your bowels open and stuff because that's
Yeah.
a perfect sign of that your gut brain barrier and like your microbiome is at homeostasis is when like you have a
Mm.
regular it's I got it down I got it down to like the minute with like how regular I am and it's
Yeah.
the consistency of like you get all ticking all these things probiotics fiber getting your out of matter fiber the variety also mitigating it, controlling your stress. I'm sure you've educated a lot of people on stress and mitigating that and controlling it. These are all signs of having like your guts at homeostasis and you're able to it flow through and it's a huge sign. And you're obviously that's not the main thing to look at, but also it's kind of like a side effect of you feeling amazing and like high energy. You're consistently high, like high cognitive ability before training, during training, at work, all that stuff is also aligned with how frequent your bowels are.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and last thing I had on this was like probiotics. Oh, sorry, prebiotics.
Yeah.
Uh, so good gut bacteria as well. So sources could be like garlic, onion, leek, asparagus, legumes, nuts and seeds again. But also you have like the ones like we said before, kimchi and the sauerkraut. They have the prebiotics and the probiotics, so they're good,
Yeah. Yeah.
amazing.
Right. I actually didn't know that. So there you go.
Yeah.
I
So
thought it was just the probiotics.
no, like they got both. So like
Yeah.
so it's pretty handy.
Cool. Awesome. Awesome. And what are some good quality testings or good quality tests that people can do to actually test their gut microbiome and see where their gut health
Yeah.
may be at? Yeah.
I wish there was some more better tests, to be honest. I'm not aware of too many great tests that are that accurate.
Yeah.
I think you should really either see a dietitian or a doctor and you go through some screening of like how your gut is going.
Yeah.
Um, it's a bit different if you have like a condition like Crohn's disease or an IBS or something, then it
Okay.
is very much something you could get look into more. But I think you should just focus on the foundations of um,
Absolutely.
everything's reversible within, like you mentioned, like it was a short time frame when you started introducing, kimchi and stuff. I think
Yeah.
what to focus on is like how regular are you? Are you having constipation? Are you having diarrhea?
Yeah.
Uh, focus on those tips I just spoke about and
Yeah.
to kind of focus on those. And it's less towards any test because I really don't want to mention any tests because none of them are that accurate yet. And I
Yeah,
don't want people to go get their data from this one thing instead of focusing on the variables that actually lead to that endpoint.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, exactly. If you're having Macca's 2 to 3 times a week and you're expecting your gut health to get better, but not incorporating the legumes, everything like that, then that's where it's falling apart. A
Yeah.
test isn't going to basically help that. And yeah, I absolutely believe and yeah, almost almost pretty bluntly tell my clients that's like it has to be the foundations. You're building a house, you don't start at the roof, you start at the ground. So
Yeah.
you build it up. So I love that. That's great. Um, we actually touched on this before, but yeah, I think bloating is probably something that for female related clients, it's probably one of the bigger topics that they want to reduce bloating and they don't know what they may not know what bloating actually is. So can you touch on that just quickly? And
Yeah, so bloating is a completely natural thing and it's not something to be worried about. And it does happen more female clients, I'd say. And it is just breaking down the minerals and all the energy in your food, and it's going to cause some gas sometimes. It's going to be impossible to mitigate all bloating completely, and it's not something I think should be a realistic goal with any client is to remove all bloating. I
yeah,
think, especially in terms of performance, if you're eating a lot of energy just to perform, like a lot of people are, if it's CrossFit or running or whatever it is, you just need a lot of energy, and that comes in sources of carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and obviously those fibers and stuff. And all that's just going to cause gas over time. But there's just ways to mitigate that. So
yeah,
it's like you mentioned before, going for a walk after eating is a huge one. I think if you stationary after eating, there's more opportunity for your body just to kind of churn and not kind of relieve any of that gas. And
yeah,
just gas over time that's kind of like staying in your body and not getting like flushed out. That's going to cause the bloating.
yeah,
And also touching on fiber, you don't want too much fiber. Don't want to confuse anyone that much, but you don't
mm,
want too much fiber in one go. That's why I kind of steer away from those protein bars. I have the artificial fibers that have 10 plus grams of fiber per little part of volume. They can also
yeah,
bit of bloating and stuff because your body's just not used to having that much fiber, and especially artificial fiber going in. So anything that's like furthest away from like what your body's used to having. And if you want to like running, for example, if you're training regularly and you're doing your kilometers each week, I'd stay with the foods you know you digest well and don't change things up, especially people try and like find some secret gel or some carbohydrate source a week before the marathon and they
yeah,
introduce it the day before. And they're like, why did I crap myself doing this run? Or why was I so bloated?
yeah,
So GI discomfort the whole time is because you've introduced a whole new carbohydrate source that you never had before. Your body's not used to it. You don't even know if your body likes it. Like, I think the key is it's kind of the less attractive thing to say, but you focus on the things that digest well and you know they sit well. And if something does, you notice something that does give you bloating 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour after, you're like, oh, what did I have? Like what did I add to this meal? What was it?
yeah.
Be like trying to eliminate that and see if you can reintroduce it later and see if you
Mm,
well. But the
yeah,
main thing I tell clients like just if you ever feel discomfort or bloating shortly after a meal, just kind of write down quickly what did you have? What did you do? Did you just sit down straight after your meal? Was it a big meal? Did you just sit down and lay down, watch telly for a while after, and that's caused the bloating, or was it something you ate as well?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I feel like it's important to be able to track your meals
Yeah.
because you can see the variation between what you're having. Oh, okay. Actually, I haven't had this in a month and I've reintroduced it and I can see that I feel bloated. I feel a bit hazy after eating it. Okay, what do I do differently? And I can look at the data because it's all there. So I think that's
Yeah.
really important.
Having a
Absolutely.
phone able to like track back is awesome for that type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And now we're going to jump into more so the timing around food when wanting to actually fuel your workouts. So I know that I've briefly touched on it, probably in a few different past ones, but I really want sort of the in-depth of it and also, yeah, I would say, yeah, the biggest return on investment is going to be carbohydrates, of course.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to carbohydrates, what is the breakdown of how much you should be having, and what almost is that limit of too much and feeling a bit tired coming
Yeah.
into the workout, and then sort of under fueling as well.
I like this topic a lot. And I love the sports nutrition side of things is really what I want to go towards in my future profession. So this topic's also like amazing.
Yeah.
Nutrition timing is also going to be very variance on like just the athlete's schedule. Obviously, if they're training in the mornings, they can't have 3 meals beforehand.
Yeah.
So I'll go through a general nutrition timing and then I'll break it down to different scenarios. And then we can talk about
Perfect.
what you
That's great.
could have just before training, and we can do some intra workout stuff and even post workout if you want as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Um,
Go ahead.
yeah, cool. So nutrition timing, you should have 2 to 3 hours before training, a bigger meal, higher in carbs, moderate protein, fats, some fats and fiber. So example would be like spaghetti bolognese or something with some meat and some veggies through it. An hour or two before, a smaller meal, higher in carbs, moderate protein, lower in fat and fiber. So it's gonna be easier to digest if it's lower in fat and fiber. That slows down your blood sugar levels and also like it's a bit more churning in your stomach, like we spoke about, a bit higher chance of bloating.
Yeah.
So that could be like a nice low fiber bagel, something with some meats and stuff on it. Um, and then 30 to 60 minutes before, having like a snack with simple carbs, low to moderate protein and fat. So you really focus on just carbohydrates for this. And that could be like rice cakes with some honey or some banana or something. And then
Yeah.
if you really want to chip in some more carbohydrates, 30, but less than 30 minutes, you have like 20 to 40 grams of simple carbohydrates from like juice, gels, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on your gut does need training for carbohydrate tolerance. So you really start with, even if it's before training, especially like 40 minutes before training, if you can't have the 20 to 40 grams of carbohydrates, just have a sip of juice and then work on that. And if that felt well, good, have 2 sips of juice and you can work up to it slowly.
Mm.
You can't just go to having a whole bottle of juice or whatever it is, lollies or gels or whatever it is. You can't just go straight into that. Your body has to work up to it, especially
Yeah.
before training.
Beautiful.
We can also put that in a different way of like, have zero point 0.5 to 1 gram per kilo of body weight
Yeah.
30 minutes before. So if it's a longer session or if you tolerate it, about run 1 gram per kilo of body weight. It's a good rule of thumb. Or you can start back at zero point 0.5. And that's more specific to like the size of the person because obviously 20 to 40 grams is good for general pop, but as soon as you have a bigger athlete that needs a lot more carbohydrates than that, then you can go towards per body weight, which is
Yeah.
yeah. So carbohydrates, I guess I'll provide an example of what you should like. For example, a 60 kilo runner or something, and they've had the main meals beforehand, and they're looking at getting that little bit beforehand, like half an hour before. That would need zero point 0.5 to 1 gram per kilo for 60 kilo. So 30 grams might look like 3 to 4 dried mango slices, or
Yeah.
60 grams could be like 2 crumpets with like 2 tablespoons of honey. So it's a big range there, but you kind of work up to it a little bit. In terms of intra workout, I'd say you're looking at anything that's above 90 minutes in activity. So if it's athletes seeing me for a game of like AFL or a longer duration sport, or is it a marathon run, something that's like that long duration. If it's shorter than 60 minutes, it's not too necessary for intra workout. I know people are always trying to like look at the small things to control, especially athletes. They really want to focus on what's the 1% I can get. And I
Yeah.
don't think there's much. You should really focus on what you're having beforehand and then after, if it's like a 1 hour training session. But anything above 90 minutes, you're looking at aiming from 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour. And you can even go
Yes.
not towards 90 grams if you really really trained your gut. I won't break into different carbohydrate sources too much because it might confuse the viewer a bit more. But
Yeah.
you have glucose and fructose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mixing them sources together can also help with absorption during training.
Absolutely.
But this is much more important if you're leaning towards this above 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour.
Yeah.
Example of 30 grams of carbohydrates might be a couple medjool dates or a gel that you've well experienced during training and you know it's digest well.
Yeah.
Or 60 grams of carbohydrates could be like two gels, or like a K-time bar, or like a carbohydrate bar with a Powerade. Or 90 grams of carbohydrates could be like two gels and some medjool dates, or like a Gatorade, a banana, and like a carbohydrate bar. So I did like mention having a good variety. If you're leaning up towards a higher carbohydrate dose per hour, having that variety from fructose and glucose is going to help with absorption,
Yeah.
mitigate that bloating.
Absolutely.
And I guess post workouts less specific. I know there's a thing that's been touched on with like the anabolic window and stuff and what that is. But as long as if you train fast, it's a bit different because you really need to get some protein and carbohydrates in because you haven't had anything since the night before.
Yeah.
But if you've training in the afternoon, and you've already had a good breakfast and lunch and you had a good snack beforehand, you've had a good amount of protein and carbohydrates throughout the day, your body doesn't automatically use all that and then somehow go catabolic just after your training session. It's no magic window that you should be focusing on. I think focusing on having like some good carbohydrates and protein within 2 hours after training is important. And that's another thing that can mitigate bloating is also not trying to cram down a protein shake within a second after training or your run.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Body's not really like you just it's a lot of blood flow going through and not lots of blood in your stomach to help digest. If you start cramming down some food, your body's not got enough blood in the gut yet, so it's kind of sitting there. It can definitely be prone to some bloating.
Yeah.
There's no magic number really post workout. I think 20 to 30 grams of protein is a good rule of thumb, like a shake, like a protein powder scoop or two, or you can have like a protein based burrito or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
The running clients will definitely make more sense into the fueling for those longer durations. And I know that where I really started to look at my own nutrition and my own fueling was really when I was training for the marathon. And what really stood out is like after 20 Ks of training, and that would be like an hour 45.
Yeah.
I would start to feel that depletion and I would start to go downhill. And that's where the gels, that's where the nutrition beforehand would really be crucial to me. And I was like, okay, I realized on this run, I haven't had enough fuel. Okay, on this run, I realized that I need to take my gel 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Or those small minor things can definitely, yeah, make all the difference when it comes to those longer duration.
Mm,
Um,
absolutely. And
exactly. Yeah.
one thing you touched on there is like, you notice things in training that you should really have practiced and got down to the T. For example, I should have had this 10 minutes earlier so you don't notice that little hypo during your run.
Yeah.
All those little tweaks you should write down after you run or your training session. You're like, okay, I'm going to take this 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
You should know before going into your marathon or your match or something, you should know like to the T, you're like, okay, now have it this time. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have this amount. This gel sits well. And hydration is a huge part of that as well, if you want to touch on that. Um, so I guess hydration in terms of electrolytes and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
um, it's kind of going to be independent on the person. If they got a high sweat rate, the climate and stuff. But having around like 300 milligrams of sodium per hour for a long duration is a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Obviously, for high sweat rate or you're in a real humid condition, you kind of want to have a high amount, but it's kind of up to the person. And anything above 2% dehydration, you start noticing a decline in cognition and performance. So
Mm.
a good thing to do is weigh yourself before the training session, if it's a run or whatever, weigh yourself after. And then if you're any more than 2% lighter, obviously it's going to be water. Um, and like your food's not going to change that too much. And if
Yeah.
that's consistently like you're decreasing 2% lighter, you have to like go back to your training and try and increase your fluids per hour
Mm.
for you as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because I feel like I've touched on, yeah, electrolytes have definitely had its own topic. But hydration in performance is like I've experienced it, and I know that I've had clients in the past. It's like if they haven't hydrated well enough throughout the day, they will have off training sessions, or they will not hit the performance that they usually do. And we always have a look at the data, and that's what the biggest piece is. Like we have data there that we can track, and we can say, well, this is why. So yeah, like even in Everfit, we have the little button that you can click for like drinking a liter of water, and then that adds up over the day. So just those small incremental things definitely make a change.
Yeah, yeah, and hydration's a huge one that people kind of forget about. I think they kind of focus on the carbohydrate timing and all that stuff and amount of protein they're having after.
Yeah,
But hydration's like sleep and hydration are two things that are always overlooked. And I think there's two things we need to really focus on if you're trying to look at the whole picture.
yeah,
And I'm sure everyone's heard about the 2 to 3 liters per day or whatever, but it's is important, and especially if you go to the high training load, you actually are wanting to get like up to 4 liters, four
yeah,
liters of fluid, and that does include electrolytes, either it's Hydrolyte, Dr. Hydrate, any of those kind of
yeah,
like reputable brands are gonna have a good balance of electrolytes to kind of you don't have to really focus on like the balance too much, as long as they include them all and focus more on your sodium for your sweat rate is gonna be important.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
And that goes great into the next topic of the caffeine consumption. So I feel like caffeine is a great supplement to utilize for training and to utilize for yeah, getting more energy out of your training. And I think being able to pair that and have the knowledge to pair it with food is where people sort of lack that education. So most people will be like, okay, working out, I'll take my pre-workout, but I won't have anything to eat.
Yeah.
So is that
So
something you've experienced as well?
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's why I laugh because it's something I see most more. Like if they have a group of trainers coming in the mornings at the physio, all of them have had a coffee but haven't had any snack, or they haven't even thought about sipping some water today. And I'm like, okay, but you've had your coffee.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's looking at the whole picture. Caffeine is not something to be scared of, and I actually utilize it in my own training. And a lot of the clients
yeah,
that love caffeine, I go for it. But you do want to focus on having it with some food on your stomach. And caffeine does dehydrate you, so you do want some fluids. And fluids will also help with cognition and performance, like I said. And caffeine's also going to help with that. So you're kind of stacking two variables to help perform. In terms of timing, 30 to 60 minutes beforehand is going to be optimal, I think. Even I'm like, I find myself better for 30 minutes. I think 60 minutes is a bit too far out. 30 minutes before training, I've had my pre-workout, or I usually just have coffee at this point. I kind of don't have much of a sweet tooth for the pre-workout. I
yeah,
love coffee. So 30 minutes before I have a coffee, it's around 3 to 6 milligrams per kilo, but I'd really start with the bottom range, even like 2 grams per milligrams per kilo to start with.
yeah,
Everyone has a different tolerance, and kind of see where that range is for you.
yeah,
I would definitely go above 6 milligrams per kilo per day at all. And definitely like my this is for my personal, and it's kind of hard for me to tell clients this because everyone loves a coffee in their
yeah,
midday slump at work. But
yeah,
I cut caffeine at like 1 p.m.
yeah,
for me because I go to bed early, and there is like a half-life of caffeine that's with up to 10 hours. So you might be
absolutely,
people say they can sleep having coffee at night, but they're getting asleep, but it's interrupting with their sleep quality.
absolutely, yeah,
Something important to talk about. But back to caffeine utilizing training, or whether it's marathon running or whatever it is, definitely utilize it. Knowing how much is a good amount for you. Have some sort of food beforehand or at the same time. It's up to you. I actually prefer having something like a snack or something maybe an hour before, and
yeah,
then I wait 30 minutes and then have my caffeine by itself, which is fine. I think it kind of
yes, yeah,
hits me more, for lack
yeah,
of a better word. So it's like kind of up to the person and what they prefer with that side of things. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And when it comes to caffeine, I think that there's a lot of different sources nowadays of caffeine. And I think that one thing that people may not recognize is that like energy drinks and the amount of caffeine or what they also put in the energy drinks that also may be affecting other things like gut health. So
Yeah,
um yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, energy drinks, you can't nail that on top of the head. Like they are slowly creeping up with the caffeine content because I
yeah,
feel like everyone's base caffeine consumption is also increasing, which is not great. But the typical brands like White Monsters or all those, they do have artificial sweeteners that are not going to cause cancer. I actually not, I don't fear like clients on artificial sweeteners at all. But if you are creeping up towards having three of them a day, it can really disrupt your microbiome and cause some bloating. So try and play around with some brands that you like. I think you should go for more powders in terms of pre-workout that like are reputable companies that
yeah,
actually made for pre-training. A lot
yeah,
of these caffeine drinks are made for like general population that like either like get before work or during work. Just have some caffeine. They have no really good other ingredients like they have some taurine. Some have
yeah,
sugars. They all have B vitamins, but they're all not like the main ingredient compound in it is just caffeine, and it's
yeah,
just heaps of artificial sweetener to
yeah,
slap the sugar-free label on it.
yeah,
So if you are lack of like if you are stuck at a server and there's no powders or anything and you got a monster there, sugar-free, have it before training. Like it's
yeah,
still doing to do the part for caffeine. And as long as it doesn't cause any discomfort for you, it's fine. But go for those powders that you see that have like the citrulline malate, the beta
absolutely.
creatine,
Yeah,
nootropics, electrolytes, the caffeine. They're kind of more of a whole picture side of things to give you a bit of focus, a bit more blood flow, also the caffeine.
yeah,
They're made to have a big, high volume of water
yeah,
to also have those compounds to work properly. So
yeah.
usually, if I get clients who use like a specific pre-workout thing, they have it with a lot of volume of water as well. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that was a good one to touch on around the caffeine supplement because, again, when it comes back to reading nutrition labels, when you are looking at a can and it's got a list of things that you have no idea what they are and they don't look like the same label that's on a powdered
Mm.
supplement, then that's also where the discrepancies lie.
Mm.
Is like yeah, it's something that you have to basically try and see what's working for you, but always opt if you can for the supplement that is powdered. It works out better in the long run. It's something that you can consistently have over time as well. Um, and again, it also comes back to gut health. It's like you're having that same thing over and over, and you're not having so much variability.
Yeah.
Cool,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's one of the main reasons I have just coffee now is
Yeah,
because a lot of the energy drinks I knew just didn't sit with me. There was
yeah,
a few powders I liked, but they were just a bit too sweet for my liking.
yeah,
And so I'm being suboptimal, I guess, with having a coffee instead of all those compounds you have in a pre-workout. But that shows that do as I say, don't do as I do.
yeah, 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 yeah. And also, it shows that not everyone needs the beta alanine in their pre-workout to be able to train effectively. It's as it comes back to is the foundations: good
Yeah,
sleep, good hydration, good
yeah.
food.
And it's
Um,
a supplement for a reason. It's a supplement onto
yes, yes,
you
yeah.
know,
And yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, speaking on supplements, what are some that you actually recommend that almost general population should be taking?
Mm. Yeah, so I'll go on to performance side of things first, and then we can go on and talk
Yeah,
about longevity and just general health.
yeah,
Creatine is probably the most backed supplement really ever. 5 grams per day, kind of, I wouldn't worry about creatine loading. That's another variable that you kind of chucking down a sink because it can cause GI discomfort a lot. So just focus on the 5 grams, be consistent with that. Caffeine, another one for performance, 3 to 6 milligrams per day. Beta alanine, 4 to 6 grams per day. Um, Try for about 4 weeks before Obviously, like you mentioned, beta-alanine isn't comfortable for a lot of people, that tingling feeling. You do adjust to that, but if you do just don't like alanine, don't worry, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Nitrates, so beetroot juice, you can buy like beetroot shots, again, like 300 to 500 milligrams, 2 to 3 hours before a pre-session. That can help with blood flow and just more oxygen to muscles as well. And then this one's kind of like more research has to come for this one, but I want to mention it, collagen. So 15 to 20 grams. You can stack it with 50 milligrams of vitamin C. It can be from an orange, or you can supplement it as well.
Yeah.
40, 60 minutes before activity can also help with
Cool.
recovery.
Yeah.
In terms of, you're probably shocked I didn't mention protein there. And I think that's, you can get all your protein from your diet. You don't, there's no magic
Yeah.
thing that's in protein powder that's going
Yeah.
to help you like absorb it faster, or I don't know, have this building foundational on the muscles any quicker. But if you struggle to get enough protein in your diet, you should aim for like 1.6 to 2 grams per kilo body weight.
Yeah.
2 grams per kilo is the higher end, but I still allow clients to go that high.
Yeah.
If you're struggling to get that from meat sources, and if you're vegetarian, it's definitely can be, or vegan, definitely can be useful. I would recommend it. So
Yeah.
protein, omega-3 fish oils. If you don't get enough fatty fish, i.e. salmon or any of those fatty fish sources, I'd recommend getting omega-3 supplement. It's great.
Yeah.
And then yeah, back to the creatine and stuff for longevity as well is great. There's more research coming out with creatine for cognition benefits and not just also performance now. So
Yeah.
creatine's also probably the number one I'd say on both sides.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I recommend creatine all the time. Again, creatine loading, for those that don't know, is basically loading 5 days of about 10 to 15 to 20 grams of creatine for those days. And then going back to the general dosage of five. You did touch on, yeah, protein powders there. It's something that I have mixed feelings about. I've really tried to get clients to focus on the foundations, getting it from actual food. And then again, it is a supplement. You're supplementing a good diet. So using it where applicable,
Yeah.
just
And
focusing on, yeah,
these are
reading the
all,
nutrition label and focusing that it's a good quality protein powder.
yeah, yeah. So any reputable brand that's like sports tested is gonna be fine,
Yeah.
because they are being tested consistently for
Yeah.
sport. So any of those ones, usually the ones at the Chemist BSC, True Protein, all of them are pretty good. Um, but yeah, just kind of go with other proteins in your access. Masachi's a good one. It's at Woolies. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Um, Sweet. Now, this topic here, I feel like in the health and fitness space, once again, it's sparked quite some controversy, or yeah, there's a bit of unawareness going on, and I wanted to also get your take on it. And this is the organic versus the non-organic. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just wanted
I
to
get I
hear
get
what you
these
think about
questions a lot
that.
with clients as well. It's one of the, yeah, the crazy carnivore questions, but also this is another question I get, especially in Australia. There's no real difference. I wouldn't go for organic really of any product at all in terms of nutrition. They really are just the facilities we have in Australia and how it's regulated. It's pretty well controlled compared to other countries.
Yeah.
So like if you want peace of mind and you have the money to do so, you can go for it. There's no negative side effects of going organic, other than it potentially might go off quicker.
Yeah.
But if it gives you peace of mind and you have the money to spend, go organic. It's fine. But I will never ever recommend organic to any of my clients, because it's
Yeah.
I don't and some diet, like some health professionals might have a different opinion on this, and that's why it's still not a debunked straight fact, because there's still discussion around it.
Yes. Yeah.
But especially in Australia, I just don't think it's necessary at all. And especially people that are on a budget and they already complain that like being healthy is quote unquote more expensive, which I don't think it is, but
Yeah.
it doesn't help when you have $12 eggs for a carton that are organic. I think just you go for like the thing you can afford, and you should just focus on the foundations of having a healthy, minimally processed diet, having organic spinach instead of normal spinach, I really don't think it's going to matter whatsoever in terms of any of those things we've spoken about today.
Yeah, yeah. And I do think, yeah, I do think you've hit the nail on the head with that. I think that, of course, if you have the extra funds there and it's something that you're seeing a higher value in, then
Mm.
definitely you can choose to go that organic route. Where people, I feel like, on in the health industry, sort of saying you have to eat organic to basically be healthy. I think that is the part where it's getting misinterpreted, and I think that it's really missing the point there.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that yeah, it's definitely something that is getting pushed, and the education behind it is what's actually missing there.
Yeah.
But I love what you said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just overwhelming the general population. We're like, oh, now I have to go organic as well as these
Yeah.
foundational pillars of a healthy diet. You should just
Yeah.
focus on the pillars first and then, yeah, focus on that other stuff later if it's even a
Yeah.
concern to you. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. No, I love that one. Now this is another one, and um, we want milk that just tastes like real milk. Um, what's your thoughts on like, yeah, again, when it comes to organic milk or like raw milk,
Okay.
between the normal shelf milk that comes from the farm, what's the differences between them?
Yeah, look, organic milk or raw milk is just a minimally processed, and I use processed in terms of a word that like is not a negative connotation. It's processed in terms of it just had some processing done to it to help it last longer, i.e., it just gets like ultra hot thermo like testing done. So it just kills the bacteria that's in the milk. So it's stored for longer. There's nothing added to it. So to answer your question, you can go raw milk if you want. I don't have raw milk. I just like normal full cream milk. Is what I like.
Yeah,
Store Paws or whatever milk you like. It's just being a bit of hot processing done to help kill the bacteria so it's lasting for longer. There's
yeah,
no added products to the milk to like compared to raw milk.
yeah,
In terms of different milks, you can go like if people like skim, like want to lower the fat content, you can. They're just literally removing the fat from the milk. They're not adding sugar and all that stuff.
yeah,
So you have a lower calorie budget compared to other people, and you want to still enjoy your milk with your coffee or whatever, you can go skim.
yeah,
If you're lactose intolerant or just don't like normal milks, or you're vegan or whatever it is, a lot of those um, pretty popular alternative milks are pretty fine. I don't think they shouldn't. You shouldn't rely on that source for either your calcium intake or what a normal milk should provide, i.e., the calcium is a massive one.
yeah.
I wouldn't steer away from it if you want to have it in your coffee or your smoothie. You can go for it. If it's oat milk, almond milk, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that. And um yeah, I think when it comes to the organic milk and those types of questions, again, it's the education around it. So
Mm. Yeah, I
perfect.
think like trying to like those topics, for example, you're focusing on the 0.005% of things that you really shouldn't be focusing on,
Yeah,
especially like no one's having that much milk in a day. Like
yeah,
I don't think I've met anyone that's having more than a liter of milk a day.
yeah,
And you think about your calorie requirements, you're not really getting much of that from milk. So you really shouldn't
yeah,
be focusing on the type of milk, really, if it's not even a
yeah,
massive part of your diet. It's-
yeah, perfect. Yeah, and counting calories is a big part of also choosing what foods and milk you eat as well. As you said, this the low fat options, skim milk, things like that. So being aware of that and having the education behind it is what's going to play the biggest part.
yeah.
Now, final question actually is when it comes to the biggest ROI, so return on investment, when it comes to food knowledge, what's one piece of advice that you would be like, if you could teach someone and say that this, you can use this for the rest of your life, what would that one thing be?
Great question. Don't know if I can think of one.
Yeah.
Return on investment for, yeah, nutrition. I think to keep it like, keep things simple, you gotta need to find like the main pillars of nutrition that are gonna be right for you. So don't avoid massive food groups. Don't be alarmed by any of the information online. Don't go no carb, low carb, carnivore. You shouldn't be scared of any food group at all, and you should just focus on the main pillars of minimally processed 80/20 diet. Focus on getting enough protein in, getting enough sufficient clean carbohydrates, enough fiber, and
Yeah.
healthy fats. I think is just going to be a massive return on investment in terms of health, performance, how you feel throughout the day, all those things, nutrition, and also investment in terms of like probably less medical bills later on. If you're getting enough
Mm,
fiber in, you can lower the rest of comorbidities like bowel cancer. You're getting enough healthy fats in, it can reduce risk of like heart disease or heart problems. There's
yeah.
all these health effects that come from nutrition. I think we should
Mm,
focus on, and all this other information is coming. That's like to get more attention from the viewer. We usually put a negative twist on it. So carbohydrates are bad. You're gonna get fat from carbohydrates, whatever it is.
yeah.
People will get so confused. There's so much information out right now. So I
Yeah.
think you should just focus. It's a long-winded answer to yours. I
Yeah.
think return on investment is just focus on the pillars, the main pillars of just the simple, not sexy health, and that's just minimally processed whole foods
Yeah.
groups. Don't be scared of any food groups.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
What would be
That's
your main return on investment, would you say, in terms of nutrition?
I would say being able to have the knowledge of, yeah, eating whole foods. I think that when I first started in the fitness industry, being able to educate myself on how to read nutrition labels
Mm,
was a really big part for me, that realized how much processing and how much sugars and how much carbohydrates, how much protein are in things.
yeah.
And it really made me realize that whole foods is the way to go. And as you said, 80/20 rule is like, I predominantly eat whole foods now. If I'm out at dinner, obviously I don't limit myself, but I do think that the knowledge and the education that reading a nutrition label impacted me, was a key thing. So I think
Mm, yeah.
that made me realize, and has taken me to the process today, is where I eat whole food. So I
Mm,
would say if I can give education on that, like I have,
mm.
um, and hopefully, yeah, hopefully that makes a big impact on someone.
Yeah, yeah. I've been really trying to. I did podcast last week, or this week, last week. Did podcast on like navigating nutrition information on because I really want to let people know that like the red flags and green flags and what to look for. And you have a famous podcaster on or something, and he's referencing a study. Is that study actually a good study? If it's just like this circling one little finding out of one small study, if there's a
Mm,
meta-analysis, all these things. I'm really trying to give people the information so they can understand that all this information out right now on nutrition
yeah,
is all of it good. What to kind of, if you do see a new thing on TikTok, what I'd make of this? Are they
yeah,
like accredited? All those things. So
absolutely.
yeah, trying to help
Yeah,
people.
yeah. And on that note is like, where can people find you? Where can people go to you for your dietitian services and also anything physio related?
Yeah, yeah. So I work with a company called Wild Physio Fitness. It's on the
Yeah,
jumper. So Um, so you can go Wild Physio Fitness website and you can book in. You just go, if you want to have a discovery call with me, 15 minutes, we can talk about your goals, see if it'll be right for you. You can book th with me there, or you can go on the Instagram. I'm on Thrive Fit Method, no space or anything. That's my Instagram. And it's just all nutrition, training stuff related.
yeah,
Yeah. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out my email or any of that. It's charlie@wildphysiofitness.com.au. Yeah, and it's been an honor talking to you, Pete.
perfect. Yeah, thank you. All of those links to Charlie will be down in the notes, or either, yeah, link to this somehow. And yeah, it's a pleasure being on. Thank you for all the knowledge. I know this is going to help so many people as well, and I'm excited to see you keep going up the ranks and doing what you do best.
Likewise. We have to do
Perfect.
this again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I'll have you on. Maybe next time will be a live one with everyone on there as well.
Yeah, and we get some Q&As and stuff going,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah,
more.
yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, thank you guys for listening.
Awesome.